Candace. It is absolutely brilliant to have you here with me today. I know we spoke before, you and I, and your messaging that you have got is absolutely incredible. So what I'm going to do to start with is just ask you to introduce yourself, give me a little bit of background. I mean, I know it, but the other girls won't know it. So if you could do that,
of course,
that would be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I am Candace. I am a 33-year-old mom of two toddlers. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And it's crazy. I am a retired marriage and family therapist. I now run my own business as an author and a teacher, as well as running a membership for other moms with chronic illness, who are just trying to live fulfilled lives, but they're, limited by illness, either physical or mental health struggles. And I love what I do. I'm in the growth stages. It's the early stages, but I love what I do, and I'm so excited to be here talking to you about it.
I take my hat off to you, because doing everything that you do and still having, a couple of small children and having chronic illness yourself is pretty amazing. And that's what I loved about your message when we were talking about it before, talking to you before, was because you actually live what you're teaching. And I
do
love that.
And I still have days like today where I absolutely break down and cry. So those days still come. Today, this evening was just one of those evenings, but I live it every day of my life. This is my reality.
And that is so good for other mums with chronic illness to know that there are people out there that are doing it tough. And even though we're out there and we're coaching them on this, we still go through this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think that's amazing. And to be a retired, marriage and relationship therapist, is that what you call?
Marriage and family therapist. Yeah.
Oh,
I did most of my work was in schools or in private practice with kids and teens and groups, but I have worked with couples. I've worked with families. So yeah. I've run the gamut. I've worked with people of all walks of life. So
I think that's an amazing skill to be able to bring to what you actually do, because the one thing that I've realized since I've been getting guest speakers and come on is that every single person that's out there and that's helping women with chronic illness has got something completely different to offer. And it is absolutely amazing, what every single person is doing. And I just absolutely love what you do. I think relationships, when you have chronic illness, whether it's with your children or whether it's with a spouse or whether it's with a family member, and that there's always stumbling blocks that come with it.
Absolutely.
And I know that for yourself, you would have gone through some of those as well, because it's really tough, isn't it, when you're out there and you've got chronic illness, and then the added stress that adds to your family, even like your husband, your partner, and that sort of thing. Yeah,
it really does. And we often split up the categories of mental illness and physical illness. Those categories are often separate, but the reality is they both have such a vast effect on relationships, on your, parenting, on your marriage, on your friendships, even on your relationships with your colleagues if you work outside the home. And I like to categorize them together because those impacts are very similar, whether you're dealing with an illness of the mind or the body. And those impacts are there. Like you said, they have an impact on your spouse. They have an impact on your children. Or if you're a parent whose child is ill, they have an impact on you as the parent. And I have found with my mom that that's the case as both the child as well as the parent, because my mom has had chronic health issues as well. And so before I developed mine, I lived it as the child. And now I'm seeing it from her perspective. Like, she's been, trying to be supportive of me. And so it affects every relationship you have.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the other thing that I love is that with you being, a mum with chronic illness and having littlies, I know for the women that I speak to, there is a lot of those women out there, and they are feeling so overwhelmed and so frustrated, and even younger women who have chronic illness that would love to have a family, but are still feeling, that overwhelm of being able to know whether they are going to be able to cope. So
Yeah.
with those ladies that are thinking, would they be able to cope? What would you say to those ladies?
It's so hard. I think the first thing that's actually similar to the focus of my blog post this week of how I stay sane while being a work from home mom with kids at home, and chronic illness. And I think the first thing I would say is to really get to know yourself and your limits. I recently saw something, there's a trend going around on Instagram right now that's like, it's a reel, and it shows like, if you had seen an image of your relationship in the past, would you have still done it? And then it goes through and the video shows people's relationships. And, my first instinct was, if I had known how sick I would get and how much pressure it would put on my spouse, it would be hard to say yes, because I know now, what he had to go through last year when I was on bed rest with my second pregnancy, and then bed rest with my chronic illnesses. And, but I wouldn't trade it because I have my kids. And so for those of us that are already in it, it's easy to say, okay, well, we just pick up and learn a new life. For those that haven't gotten there yet, they don't have a partner, they don't have kids, I would say really know your limits, and find someone who's going to stick it out with you. Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of us end up with partners that are not as understanding, and they don't take seriously that whole for better, for worse, in sickness and in health thing. And they think of sickness as like, oh, you get a cold and I'll give you some orange juice or what have you. But when we talk about chronic illness, your partner, if you don't have one yet, has the advantage of knowing these things.
Yep.
So you can share that with them. But find someone who's willing to be in that journey with you, because that's the important thing. And I saw that with clients who had mental health struggles too, that even they need to pick partners that will go through it with them, as they're adjusting medications or finding new symptoms or whatever it is. It's always, I always talk to my clients in my membership that it's about rhythm of life and not balance, because life has an ebb and flow to it. And so find someone who's willing to work with you in each season for that season's rhythm. That's probably the two biggest pieces of advice. Know yourself and your limits, and find someone who's willing to be in the journey with you.
That is absolutely brilliant advice. And I would definitely add my weight behind that, because coming where I've come from as well, I know I am like you. I do have a supportive partner, a supportive husband. And I can imagine how hard it would have been if he hadn't have been there and done it. It does take its toll on those guys as well.
Yeah.
It really does. And like you said as well, it does affect children, and it affects them in a really, really big way. So yeah, and I just think that's phenomenal. I love your cat. It's a she, isn't it? She's back again.
She is a she. I love her too, but she hates it when I'm on
she does.
a Zoom call, because she doesn't want any attention until you're on something else, and then she wants the attention. So
oh, look, I absolutely love that. So I suppose my next question would be, in a day where things aren't going so great, when you've got chronic illness, what are some of the coping mechanisms that you would put in place for that? Do you have a particular structure that you teach your ladies, or?
So that's another area where I remind them that everyone is different. So I I come from the mental health side where coping skills, when I'm working with kids in elementary school, we call them calm down skills, you know, like how do you calm down? But when you're talking about your body, you're not really calming down your body. You're just resting. So for me, it depends on the day and it depends on how much I have to push through. If my husband is home and able to have the kids, I give myself a rest day, like in bed. And if I have to work that day, I work from bed. But I'm still working on finding my own. I think it's what works for you. For me, it's the hobbies, it's the creativity, it's the work that I do is actually it's an outlet, it's a coping. And I am learning to as cliche as it sounds, I'm learning different things about yoga so that my body can get that release that it needs. Because I think especially for those of us with a chronic pain disorder, we hold it so tightly sometimes. So I think finding what works for each individual is important. Some of the things that I recommend when I'm working with my ladies is I help people kind of work on their own rhythm as well as their self-care routine. So I have a whole course and ebook inside my membership for the members that actually walks through developing your own self-care routine. And not like going to an elaborate spa, but like the practical things that we do to take care of ourselves, the hobbies that we do, the stuff we put in our bodies, drinking enough water, the stuff we do with our bodies, getting movement in. And so it's about finding what works for you, finding the exercises your bodies can do without putting them in too much stress, making sure you're getting those basic day-to-day needs met, your hygiene, your food, your water, and then finding the hobbies that relax you and allowing yourself rest and grace. Those are the biggest coping skills I think that we can all use. And then finding what works for you in each of those categories is the key.
It's all about finding something that's going to be long lasting, not quick fixes, isn't it? It's all about, making those changes that will really stick and not doing them quite as, in one great big lump, because I think that when we start to do that, then we get really, really overwhelmed. So it's all about taking small steps and just putting the habits in place, isn't it? And a lot of the times you have to go back and really revisit, I suppose. It's like you were saying before, it's that ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And with that ebb and flow, because there's definitely different seasons, particularly even in chronic illness, as well as your life and your marriage and with your children and everything. So there's definitely different seasons there. And I think that with that ebb and flow, you need to go back and you need to revisit it, more than once, because it's just something that keeps changing. And you would find that with your ladies as well, that you can start out with a chronic illness and it sort of develops along the way, and your needs change, I suppose. And as they change, you need to go back in and reassess.
Yeah. And along the lines of reassessing, another thing that I forgot to say, but really taking control of your treatment, taking it seriously, getting your partner on board and being consistent. So it's like you said, it's the little habits consistently, not big things over time. And that includes our treatment, taking our medications, having a system in place so that we don't forget those medications, because it's so easy to forget. And sticking with that treatment. And that comes back to having a partner that is really supportive. And it breaks my heart when I see women whose partners are not willing to be understanding, or who leave them in the midst of this, because it's already hard enough to be a mom with chronic illness with a partner, much less trying to do it. I have friends who are single moms who I you know, like, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. Like, I don't know that I could do it. You know, today I pressed on. My husband went to work. I had the afternoon where he was at work and I was home. And so it's taking control of that treatment, and knowing when things need to change, knowing when that ebb and flow is happening and you have new symptoms, or maybe your symptoms are lessening. So maybe you want to, you know, take less synthetic medication and do more natural things like diet, exercise. It's taking control of your own treatment. That's another really big way to stay on top of things. And no, it's not going to happen overnight. Like you said, it's the long game. We're not sprinting, we're marathoning.
Exactly. And
or triathloning. Sometimes I feel more like it's a triathlon. Like,
oh, that is so true.
I've been in the water, I was on a bike, now I'm running. I don't know what I'm doing. We're not in a sprint, we're in a triathlon.
That is exactly right. And, you know, I'm a really big advocate. I always say, get your medical team right. Get your medical team around you. In a previous life, I was a medical receptionist. So I got to see the complete other side of, you know, the whole medical system in Australia, which was really interesting. What it did for me is it brought the humanity. Oh, my goodness, that's a big word. I'll put my teeth back in. Anyway, they were more human. That's what I mean. They were more human.
Right.
And they were just people in the end, just like what we are. And that's the thing for me that allowed me to push past what we were taught as children, where we were taught not to question, you know, our medical team, that they were always right. And being on that other side of it really taught me that really, when you put it in a different mindset of, how can I explain it, of us employing them,
right,
then that allowed me to be able to say, well, yes, I can hire and fire whoever doesn't work for me. You know, if it's not happening for me, if they're not on my team properly, if they're not supporting me, because if you start taking control of your health, you will end up having a direction that you really, really want to take. And to have your medical team there that talks to each other, that supports you, that supports, you know, other people that are in your medical team, is so vital. It's just so vital. You would understand that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I am in the unique spot right now, the unique season that we just moved in March.
Oh, wow.
Right after I was finally diagnosed with one of my big diagnoses after 6 years of trying to figure it out. And we moved 2 weeks later, and I just had my first doctor's appointment today. So since March, today was my first doctor's appointment, and the doctor was very concerned about some of the new symptoms, and I still have to go see the specialist who deals with it. But like, you have to have a medical team. And luckily I felt like the doctor today was really listening, really taking their time. And I had a doctor like that in Oklahoma before we moved. But you're absolutely right. I used to tell the clients that as a therapist, you get to choose who you hire and who you fire on your team, because you need the team around you. And I would say also, as a relationship advice, that the same now goes for the people you allow into your space outside of your medical team. Your relationships in life now have to be supportive and understanding, or they're going to drain you. They're going to take your energy from you, and you already have a limited amount. So if the people around you are constantly telling you what you're doing wrong, or that you just need to get over it, or you're making it up, or whatever it is they're doing, if they're just like, well, push through it, or you never, they're constantly complaining, you never go out with us, you always stay home, whatever it is, those relationships are going to be draining to those of us in our position. And so not only with your medical team, but with those around you, you need to find those supportive people where you can. Like, obviously you can't like get rid of your coworkers or whatever, but where you can be selective. And that includes family, unfortunately, for some of us. I am blessed with a mostly understanding family, some that have questions, but we get to choose that in a lot of areas. And so it's about our medical team, our mental health teams, and the relationships around us, essentially.
I love that, because that, I think, is one of the most important things, is to make sure that you are surrounded. And a lot of us don't realize we actually do have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely having that choice and making sure that, you know, it's all about really making us a priority, because when I look at it and I think about it, it is our responsibility to make sure that we are looked after as well as what we possibly can, so then that we can nurture our families, that we can nurture our children, you know, and all of the relationships around us. And if we don't nurture ourselves first, everything just falls in a heap. So that's pretty scary. We don't need to be in that situation. So yeah, I definitely 100% agree.
And I think for the women that you work with that are in your group, a lot of us that are like my generation and older, we were raised to be, especially as women, to be polite, to be hospitable, to be you know, willing and open, and we are meant to be polite, and we forget sometimes that you can be polite and still put up boundaries. You can be polite and still do those things.
That's so important.
Oh,
that is so important.
You froze.
Oh, it's my internet connection on this side. Have I unfrozen yet?
You froze on my end.
It's on.
Can you still hear me though?
Yeah, I can. It's the internet.
No, but I can hear you. I just can't. So as long as you can hear me, we're good.
It's all good. The internet's a little bit unstable here at the moment. So I will confess that I am sitting in my caravan, and we are up at my mum and dad's. And actually, when I was doing this yesterday, the whole thing just completely dropped out on me, and I'm like, I'm just going to trust that it's going to hold in for me today. So if I freeze for a little while, and
well, you're back now. I could hear you the whole time, but now you're unfrozen, so that's good. But yeah, so I think that's where we get locked in. Yeah. And I think that's what like you said, we forget that it's in our control. And I think that's a big part of the reason why, at least for my generation and older, that we do forget that it's in our control, because excuse me,
come on, Mum, what
talking because we were taught that it's not, that we are meant to be accommodating. And so we forget that you can have boundaries and be polite and accommodating at the same time, but that you should be most accommodating to yourself and your energy.
Oh, so. Definitely. And we definitely need to put ourselves first when it comes to that. And then that has a flow-on effect where it's less disruptive on the whole family.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
So a bit of a personal question now. How do your children react to you having a chronic illness?
So my children are 2.5 and 1.5, so they don't really know exactly. And then obviously in 2020 we had the whole world was shut down. So I honestly don't know yet how they're going to react. I think they notice the days where mom is in bed a lot. And for my daughter, that was a lot of time after my son was born. She had been used to just being with me all the time. Then we had 2 kids, and I was so sick that even just walking to our kitchen, I could barely even get there. And our bedroom was literally right outside of our kitchen. So they notice that, but they just come in to the bedroom. We sit in bed, we watch shows in bed, we read in bed, we play. And right now I spend a lot of my time out with them. And
sorry, I can see an eye, and that is just the cutest thing. I'm such a cat person.
She's just gonna take over the show.
Hey, that's okay.
But yeah, so I don't know yet long term what it's gonna be like, because they're too young, and 2020 was not a good indicator, because everyone was, shut down. So I'm not sure yet.
That's true. And you actually answered my next question, because I know for myself, when my children were small and I had my chronic illness and things weren't going so great, and my hubby was working out on the farm and he was also truck driving, I used to have special activities that the kids could actually sit down and do. Just actually really create, it's like you were touching on there before, really creative activities that they could do without a lot of supervision. So and that sounds very, very similar to what you actually do with your little ones.
Yeah. And I set up the living room because I will sometimes do work while they're playing. I have a specific kind of like routine and system, but they'll color, they'll read, they have their toys that they play with, they have their shows that they watch, we turn on music and they dance, and I just am there with them. I'm on the couch with all my pillows around me or what have you, and when I can get down on the floor and play with them, I do. But it's being creative, and creativity is so important to me as an author and as a mom. And so watching them be creative, letting them be creative. And then my husband does some of the heavy lifting. Like he and my mom took them to the park last week when my mom was here. He and I will be taking them to the park. There's a park nearby, and we do it together so that it's not just me. And we have just found creative ways to get some of their energy out. Like we have a tent and tunnel system, and we're going to get an indoor climber for them so they can climb up and slide, and, right there in the living room. And it's that creativity of how you set it up for them. And if you do those things, your kids won't even really know the difference. Like they won't miss out on anything. Yeah. And unfortunately, we still feel that they do. I still feel that they do. I still feel like somehow I'm letting them down, but really it's not. They're still kids. They're playing, they're imagining. And so for your girls too, that are either wanting to start a family or have one, and now they have this chronic illness, that's important to remember too, is if you're finding these creative ways to spend time with them, to encourage their creativity, you're not doing it wrong. You're just doing it different. And that's okay.
Exactly. That is absolutely. Yeah. The other question I wanted to know, so you're an author. What have you written, darling? Tell me.
So I have written a novel, which is actually out of publication now because I'm repackaging it with its sequel eventually. Oh, yeah. I have written a Bible devotional for new moms, and that is on Amazon. My old business partner and I have a short story book for young adults, as well as a poetry book out on Amazon. And this fall, I will be actually publishing a journal, a writing and art journal for people with chronic illness. I will also be publishing a second Bible devotional for moms. And then I have a novella coming out this probably December, early January. So, and then that's the books that I do. And then I also run a blog and do freelance writing as well. So,
as well as having a membership site, being a mother, being a wife, a daughter,
yes,
and everything.
Yes,
you've got it all happening.
So it does sound like a lot when you say it like that, but it's not as much as people think it is. The teaching is really the biggest, because that one I actually have to be the teaching and the membership site for the coaching. When I do those things, I actually have to be somewhere at a specific time. But the rest of it I get to do like on my own. So I just kind of do it. I have a system for it and routine and stuff. So that makes it easier. So it's, it's workable.
That's the thing. It's being organized and having, I was going to say a schedule, but sometimes that can get thrown out the window as well when you're having a really, really bad day. But it's all about just having a basic structure there that you can go back and fall back on, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what I work with. Like, that's what I talk about on my blog, my Instagram, is instead of having a strict schedule, because that honestly can be stressful, and for stress triggers chronic illness flares all the time. So it's about systems is what I like to teach. So it's finding the rhythm for your season of life, and then the systems and routines that work for you and your family, and knowing that within that you build in the opportunity for days where you can't get out of bed, or days where you have multiple doctor's appointments that suddenly pop up, or, you have to take the kids to the doctor, and that's where I think those of us that have jobs that we can do at home makes a big difference. And not everyone does that, but I think we have this amazing opportunity in today's world to do that more often. And to find jobs that can be flexible with us if we're willing to know that they're not going to work overnight necessarily. It's going to take time, but yeah, it sounds like a lot, but it's like you said, it's that basic structure that you work within, and then know that there's flexibility there too. So
I think the COVID pandemic has actually fed into us being able to be online more, where it has given us more opportunity to be able to work from home, and definitely developed more, even like your office jobs these days, they can do a lot of that from home. And I think that actually is really, really incredible. I think it's just been probably one of the positives that's come out of it, actually. I know for some people it's not, because some people really thrive on being around other people and really like the energy of and feeding off what other people do as well. But definitely for a lot of us who have chronic illness, the days that we can't get it, that we just feel like we can't even get out of the house, it's a godsend. It really is.
Absolutely.
It really, really is. So is there any other major tips that you would like to pass on to the women that we're going to be talking to?
So I think in terms of relationships, it can be so isolating to have a chronic illness, and it's so easy to do that to ourselves. Because if we go back to the conversation we had earlier, if we forget that the company we keep is in our control, the way we control it is by keeping everybody out. And not connecting. And so one thing I would say is to find those connections that you can have that either experience similar things that you do, or that at least are understanding of what you're going through, and build on those connections, because you are in control of that. And if we isolate ourselves, that is one of the top indicators as well as symptoms of someone who is depressed, and that's going to lead us down an even darker place than we want to be in the first place. So that's one thing I think I would share. Another thing is, I absolutely believe in the power of creativity and hobbies to keep us kind of like vital and giving vitality to our life. So for me, it's writing and drawing. And I'm not a great artist, but I like to draw. I like to sketch. I like to do those things. And I know that I like, pen and paper, because if holding it like this, because I have problems with my hands, if I hold it like this, it's better. So I have ways to adapt it. And what I think happens if we develop a chronic illness, we sometimes worry that we can't do the things we used to like. And so what I would say is take those hobbies that maybe you used to have and adapt them. Find ways to kind of make them work for your new situation. So if you, like, there is no way, I've never wanted to learn to knit, but she just bit my arm. Oh, she just broke the skin.
Oh no.
She is not happy about this conversation. My hands and knitting just wouldn't work. And I used to paint. I used to do acrylic paintings,
yep.
But I can't sit at a canvas that long anymore. And I can't control the brush the way I used to, but I can do digital art on my iPad with my Apple Pencil now. And I draw and I write and I can type. And now with dictation, if I'm having a day where I can't even type, I can dictate my writing. So find ways to adapt those hobbies, or find some new hobbies that are a little easier. Like, I can't even think of any, but if you can knit and you like that and your body is letting you keep doing it, then keep doing it. So I think there's a power in hobbies and creativity, that keeps us vital and engaged with life, and kind of keeps us from giving up on that.
I 100% agree with that. I know for myself, when I was going through my deepest, darkest time when I first got diagnosed, I know it was paint by numbers, but I was like you, I couldn't actually sit up at a canvas. So I adapted a little table that was able to tilt, where I could sit in my recliner.
Right.
I was able to do it from my recliner. And I lost, count of time, to be honest, because time was just, it flew by. And, the next minute I'd be looking up and there'd be 3 and 4 hours just gone.
Right.
It would just be that incredible. And then I used to do, I haven't been doing it for a little while now, but diamond art, where they used to put the little beads.
Yeah.
I love that as well. I think that's a really good thing. But the other thing that I also found, it's really, really important when you're going through this, because I know brain fog and everything comes all into it as well. And that's another whole different subject. But yeah, it's also finding things that will be able to stimulate your mind, and without, and you can do that through being creative.
Yes.
I know for me, I don't like doing crosswords, but I do like doing a word search.
Oh, me too.
So there you go.
Yes, I love word search, but I don't like crosswords.
Yeah, and for me, I ended up making it a game. How quickly can I just glance at it and find the word without actually searching for it? Right. And I think that by doing things like that, it just really kept me stimulated, particularly like when the medication kicks in and you're just really having a really low day, or you just don't have the energy to do anything. That's what I used to find that I used to do. I'm definitely not a knitter or a crocheter. That's all for my mum. She does all that wonderful, beautiful stuff. I love craft and to be able to bring that in as well. But that wasn't something that I was able to do early on because my body just wouldn't let me do it, but it does now. So to be able to go and do craft, was just amazing. I built gratitude boxes and just the most amazing, beautiful things that you can do. And when you do something like that, you can gift it on. So you have got, you've got, not just it building up in the home, but you've also got the ability to be able to gift that as a gift. And it's such a much more personal thing to be able to give something that you've put a lot of, your good hard work and love into. So I find that that's really, really important as well, as exactly with what you have said. So I think that a lot of us are on the same page. It's just when you are in the throes of it, you really just need somebody to guide you.
Yeah. And I think and you had just said something that made me think about that. When we first get diagnosed, or if a big flare happens, or like for me, both kids at the end, I was on modified bed rest, but with my son, it was literally my last trimester. And I was so excited because I was like, I'm going to be done with this. We're going to go to church. We're going to go. And he came literally the day after our hospital shut everything down for COVID. Like literally the state shut down, the hospital shut down. I can only have one person with me. And then after having him, that's where some of my complications really became this, like, you have to do something about this now. Someone has to listen to you finally and see that there's something here that maybe doctors were brushing off before, because now you have 2 kids. You can't just like let it go. And because now there's 2 kids involved, you're married, and you know. And so when we're in that time, I do think it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to get, we get these like catastrophic thinking. I'm never going to be able to do this again. I'm never going to be able to do that again. And then, like you said, eventually we find ways to adapt. And then sometimes, you know, we'll have better chunks of time where we can do maybe standing at an easel again, or we can do things again that we couldn't do before. But now we also have these new skills that are adapted, and it's things that we can share with the world. As for brain fog, I wish I knew a way to like deal with that. I don't have any advice for anyone with that, because sometimes I will be mid-sentence and my husband will be like, and I'll be like, I don't know. I have no idea what was coming next. I have no idea. Okay. It's gone. Or I'll have no idea like what I was doing. And for me, like you said, keeping your mind sharp, I do love word searches. I like to time myself and see if I can like beat my best times to do those. But I also enjoy puzzle games. So for me, days like yesterday was a really hard day where I was like, physically, I had a migraine. I just couldn't focus, and screens are not the best for people with migraines. I don't advocate that unless you know how your migraine will respond. But sometimes the only thing that will keep me from dwelling on the pain is getting involved in one of those little puzzle phone games, like the Match 3 games or whatever it is. So finding things that keep our mind occupied like that really help take our mind off of our pain. Because if we're not doing those things, all we're doing is dwelling on the pain. And that's where we start to maybe complain more, and the people around us might not want to be the ones that we complain to all the time. Now, expressing that you're in pain isn't a bad thing. I don't believe in toxic positivity at all. I think you need to own the bad feelings, feel them, and go through them. And then I also think we need to be focusing on gratitude. So another thing I would recommend, like another like activity, and this is why I've actually created the journal that's going to be coming out probably next month, with journal prompts that they can respond to, is as we process through those things, they become easier. But one of the things I work through my teenage students with, not about chronic illness, but with social skills, is building their self-confidence. And I think we need that as well. Mm-hmm. And I have this activity that I call my 3x3 activity. And I have them write down 3 things that they like about themselves, 3 things they're good at, and 3 things that they're thankful for. And that helps us remember that even if everything just kind of sucks right now, there's still really good qualities about you as a person. There's still things that you are still good at, and there are still things to be thankful for. And so I think 100%. Anyone who's having one of those really hard days, especially emotionally, that can be a really good, like, almost like jumper cables to jumpstart the battery, to like get them like, okay, we're just in a new place right now. We felt the bad feelings. This sucks. Life sucks. But there's also these good things that are still there. So
That's such good advice. Gratitude is such a good thing to practice. It's something that I practice all of the time. It's something I practiced right from word dot when I don't know, it's years and years and years now. And it really does let you know that no matter how bad life gets, there's always something, and it does help bring up confidence as well. One of the things that I've recently just started doing in my gratitude journaling is I start every day with the phrase, I am enough. Because a lot of us don't realize that we are enough, that we are enough to be able to move through everything that we've got to move through. And our confidence, like you said, our confidence gets really knocked. We forget that there are a lot of things that we are good enough at. And that's definitely something that we should be very aware of. I think that little phrase, I am enough, can be very life-changing.
I agree. I might borrow that from you and I might start using that in my daily journal as well. I've been really focused on that message as well, just in a slightly different way of like, no bad health condition takes away our value as a human. We could be completely bedridden. We could be completely unable to cook food for our kids, completely unable to take them out of the house, completely unable to, do a lot of the things we used to. And none of that changes our inherent value as people. And I always like to encourage moms. If your kids are fed, loved, and safe, they're good. If they're mostly happy and mostly clean, because we all know kids get dirty and unhappy at the slightest inconvenience. Like my daughter cried today because I turned on the TV show she told me to turn on. So like, they don't have to be happy all the time, but if they are loved, if they're fed, not necessarily by you, but fed, and they are, safe, you're good. Everything else is just icing on the cake, and they are going to love you anyway. And there's a lot of comparison, a lot of mom guilt out there, a lot of really people that just want to be internet worthy, and they're forgetting that no one really has time for that in their day-to-day life, especially those of us with chronic illness. I use a chair in my kitchen a chair with wheels to get around. I have we're still setting it up where it's actually usable for me, but I can't stand to cook like I used to. I can't be up there for 45 minutes chopping, cooking. So we use chairs. I sit and do a lot of stuff, or my husband does the prep and I do the cooking. I don't have time to make an Instagram worthy bento box for my kids. We're not doing that here. So
I love that.
That's important to remember too. Nothing takes away your value as a person. And if your kids are safe, loved, and fed, you're good. You are a solid parent at that point.
I absolutely 100% agree with that. Now, the last part, how I'd like to bring this to a close today, is I've got another little topic there that I'd really like to talk about, because it's something that some of us, well, a lot of us actually don't do. Well, we don't do enough of. And I would love your input on it, is that when we actually have the wins, and they might only be really small wins, we don't celebrate them enough. So
yes,
I find that sometimes as you move through your chronic illness, there will be times where you're feeling like you're not sick enough to be, in bed, but you don't feel well enough to be out, going to a 9-to-5 job. So There's this particular area well, it's not just a particular area, but the one that I really want to focus on at the moment is this particular area where, what do you do when you feel like that you're not worthy because you don't fit in either category. You know, you're just floating around somewhere in the middle, and you feel like you're not worthy enough to be able to celebrate those wins. And I think for a lot of us, because like chronic illness is that ebbs and flows that, you know, that we go through, we might not be sick all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just, you know, sometimes we just don't celebrate it. So do you talk to your girls about that as well?
I do actually, and I approach it from a few different angles. So one of them is, you said it really well about, we don't necessarily feel sick enough, but we don't feel well enough. And I think on our good days that are good or good-ish, that leaves us in this weird in between, because there's a lot of, unfortunately with the internet, there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens. It happens in motherhood, it happens in chronic illness, it happens in wellness. You have to be, you know, working out this many times a week, eating this type of healthy food to be part of the wellness community. You have to be this sick to be part of the illness community. You have to be mothering this way to be part of our motherhood community. And that's just a bunch of BS, to be honest. Like, it's all crap is what it is. Because, you know, I was well enough to force myself out of the house last week when my mom was here visiting. We went to a lot of really fun places. We did a lot of things, but I'm also sick enough where I also had to cut those times short sometimes. And where I ended up, after my mom left, having 3 days of recovery where I could barely get out of bed. And so we talk about that gatekeeping and kind of how to change our mindset around that. As for the wins, I'm really good at doing the whole do as I say, not as I do thing, because I'm really bad at celebrating my own small wins, but I'm really, really good at celebrating other people's wins, big or small. And I've always been an achiever. I've always had this like drive to get things done and not celebrate unless they're like really big accomplishments. And even then, I have a tendency to downplay my accomplishments, downplay what I do. So in that respect, I'm a big do as I say, not as I do person. And I'm trying to get better at that. I'm trying to get better at, even for myself, celebrating when I get a blog post out, celebrating when I get a YouTube video out, celebrating when I get a, get my Instagram. Like, I'm actually pretty good at Instagram because I really enjoy it. I enjoy my blog too, but it's a longer form content. But I'm getting better at celebrating when those things happen, and celebrating when I get a chapter of my book written, or, you know, telling myself it's not just like I have my planner, trying to tell myself like, okay, it's not just a thing on my to-do list. It's something that I've actually, like, I did that today. I got that done today. Yesterday I was having a really rough day, and I did, like, out of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things on my to-do list, I did 5 of them.
Wow.
And that was just feeling even just not great about myself. So I'm working on that myself. And I do think that is a big problem for us. I think when we sit down and do those like activities, like the 3x3, or we do a gratitude journal or things like that, we get a little bit better at celebrating those wins, where we see, and for me, actually keeping a planner has helped, because it's helped me see what I'm actually doing.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes too, we don't realize how much we are accomplishing in our enoughness. Like, we're so busy thinking my body can't do this, my mind can't do this, I'm not enough, I don't fit in this world, I don't fit in this world, that we forget what we've actually accomplished. We forget what we actually did. Even if it's just, I got out of bed and took a shower without throwing up, or
yes,
passing out, or whatever it is. that we did. Or one day a few weeks ago, I think it was last week, I cried because my kids actually ate their entire dinner. And like, I had made them dinner and I'm so used to them. They're in that picky toddler phase where they'll like pick and choose. And I actually felt like I did something good for once. Like, I was just so excited that I cried. And so I'm getting better at it, but I agree with you. I think it's something that our community as a whole, especially the women in our community, are really not great at doing for ourselves. And me included. So
I think it's something that we all need to work on. And I actually really wanted to know your point of view on that. And because it is also a really big issue as well. So, okay. On that note,
yes,
we'll start to wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you when they're looking for you? And I know that we'll go back and we'll put this all in the comments and everything as well. But I would just love for you to tell everybody where they can find you.
So the easiest way to find me is through Soul Cadence Coaching. In Instagram, it's got underscores with it. My blog is under it's under soulcadencecoaching.wordpress.com because the actual like URL is still my old company name. That confuses everybody. So Soul Cadence Coaching is the easiest way, or Candice Janae. And I am on Instagram. I have a blog. I am on YouTube, which I honestly don't know exactly how to find me on YouTube without sending someone the link, except I guess searching my name. And yeah, that's the biggest places you can find me is Instagram, my blog, and YouTube. That's where I hang out on the internet.
Well, what I might do is I might get you to send me through those links and we can
absolutely
add them in for everybody so that they can go and find you. So what I'm going to do is I'll wrap up and we'll stop the recording, and I'll just get you to hang on for a second so I can say a proper goodbye.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you very much, honey, for coming on. I absolutely love talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, your message that you send out to everyone is just so valuable. I think the more that we can get out and because I'm, as you know, I'm all about women supporting women who have a chronic illness, and whether that be, you know, yourself as a coach or whether it be somebody else who's in the throes of it, I just think that the best thing that we can do is all come together and collaborate as women and support each other. And you do that beautifully. So, so thank you very much. And
thank you.
We will call it. Yep, that's about the hour. We didn't have much trouble filling that in, did we?
No, not at all.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.